Our presentation was on the implications of mandatory vaccination for children in the U.S.
Alright, so despite many Americans believing that vaccination should be mandatory, as well as doctors and scientists, a growing number of the population is starting to believe that vaccinations are dangerous and also having a great deal of fear with vaccinations. And this is because of the multiple vaccinations administered at once, the chemicals present in vaccines, and the belief that natural immunity is more effective. So the first question asked by parents is, how are multiple shots administered at once safe for the baby's developing immune system? And this is a good question. So the baby's exposed to millions of pathogens every year from the moment they're born, and this is from their surrounding environment. And so what the body does to combat this is it develops a system of division of labor so the immune system is never overwhelmed. So by the time they get the first round of vaccinations, the baby's already been exposed to thousands of strains of bacteria, such as E. coli and streptococcal, which causes strep throat. And these are very dangerous, but the body's used to dealing with it. So if all 11 vaccines were given at once, it would only use up 0.1% of the immune system, which is extremely small. And on top of this, I say using quotations because it's constantly dividing cells and can never be used up. And the pathogens are dead or weakened. The second question parents ask is, how are vaccinations more effective than natural immunity? So many parents believe that natural immunity causes a better immune response, but this isn't always true. There are some pathogens, such as pneumonia, that can't be recognized by T cells because the T cells don't respond, which is known as a T cell independent response. And so this means that if the child ended up getting strep throat and was not vaccinated, they wouldn't be able to fight it off as easily and could spread it to other parents and adults that haven't been vaccinated. So some genius scientists created something called the conjugate vaccine, and what this does is it induces an artificial T cell response, which makes it much more safe and gives children better cell memory so they actually have immunization. So the first form of natural immunity right there is passive, and this is through breast milk, but obviously mothers don't breastfeed past a certain age, so this isn't reliable. And actually getting the infection can cause lasting complications. And unless you guys are plants, you don't need to worry about innate immunity. So the second question is, what are the chemicals in vaccines and how do these affect babies? So the first one's thimerosal, which is processed quickly in the kidneys and flushed out of the body. And the second one is aluminum, and studies have actually found there to be more aluminum in breast milk and the food we eat. So the quote, "The dose makes the poison," shows that just because the chemicals in vaccines are largely regarded as dangerous doesn't mean they are in the dose present. And on top of this, it's believed that these chemicals can cause brain disorders such as autism, but the article published by Andrew Wakefield used much too small of a sample size of only 12 children, and out of 12, 5 actually had autism before they were vaccinated, which shows no correlation. So in full, healthcare providers and doctors should communicate better with their patients so that they don't have any wrong information that could cause fear and confusion. Multiple vaccines, as well as their ingredients, are completely safe for children, and so the only exemption should be on a medical basis. Despite this, religious exemption is still present in 47 states besides California, Mississippi, and West Virginia, and this poses an ethical problem towards the health of children. And here's how.
Parents believe that it's a lack of faith and that God should heal their kid. But this is more dangerous than medical exemption because it hurts the herd immunity of a whole area. So if one person gets it, the whole community is going to get it. It's going to spread like a wildfire because no one is immune. But if only one person isn't immune, then no one's there to give it to them because everyone else is immune. So faith healing affects the whole community, which makes it more dangerous. And in 1991, there's a measles epidemic in Philadelphia that resulted in more than 500 cases and 7 fatalities in kids. And that was traced back to 2 faith healing churches. Oh, it went back. Oh wait, okay, yeah, here we go. All right, necessity for vaccination in infants. Colin Durkin died as an infant due to pertussis, and this could have been prevented if he had been vaccinated. No one was negligent with this. His parents and doctors, no one was negligent, but he just didn't get it in time. But this shows the necessity for it. I mean, if he had been vaccinated, he might have lived. So it shows the necessity for vaccinating infants at the earliest stages of life. But despite that, a lot of parents still refuse, and most doctors find that to be unethical. Ethical dilemmas facing parents and doctors, obviously religious barriers, which I just talked about, and then misinformation and false facts. like the autism myth, which Jack talked about, which was supported by Jenny McCarthy. So, if Jenny McCarthy is saying that her son's autism was caused by vaccination, you might not want to vaccinate your kid. And then, of course, doctors, the dilemma for them is that parents obviously aren't allowing treatment. And some will even refuse clients that won't vaccinate, but that's not recommended by most doctors and the American Academy of Pediatrics. But the AAP also considers it to be child abuse for a parent to not vaccinate their kid. And then obviously more exemptions can also damage the economy because it will cut funding because no one's getting them anymore. So yeah.
Okay, so for an economic fund. According to the World Bank, the change of the GDP in Tanzania showed it rising to 23.7 billion last year from 10.2 billion in 2001. Which means that if assured immunity is offered for all children, there are less chances of illness that could potentially cause a dilemma to their ability to go to school and receive an education, leaving one incapable of acquiring a job. Plus, it will increase the number of Americans who can play a role in the economy. So these statistics also show that how the economic growth would suffer if it wasn't for the addition of vaccines. And not only this, but it also shows the benefits of having major increases in the amount of vaccinated children that would add to the economic growth. So vaccinations allow us to fend off diseases as a young age, making children able to develop and age into more valuable roles in society. For example, they could go to school and continue to work at a job, which just by having a job directly affects the economy. With vaccinations, the population would be protected from setbacks on a larger scale because they significantly decrease the likelihood of diseases traveling from one person to another, leading to epidemics, as shown here. In support, research provided by the UNCF and WHO predicted 8 million children could be saved by vaccinations each year. And for solutions economically, if we invested more into vaccine research, more knowledge could support the overall importance of vaccination and advances could be made to increase the quality and number of children receiving them. And then with mandation, more children could face the protection vaccines provide and lessen the number of children affected, thus decreasing the spread. And by increasing the direct intercommunication between healthcare providers and parents, more people will understand the importance of vaccines, and they will support and could possibly become in addition to the people who are vaccinated. So because they could avoid risk and safely take on economic roles. And then for the last one, the economy will benefit from medical tax and funding increases as well as prioritizing them, because the more vaccines can continue to protect the population and its contributions to economics, the more the economy will grow.
So, in full, we should continue research to put as many vaccines as possible into one shot so that parents don't have to keep going back, which may cause them worries. We should also have vaccinations mandatory for all children entering school as well as babies. But the problem with this is that immunodeficient children can't be vaccinated. Even despite this, though, they're protected by antibodies that the vaccinated people give off. Better vaccines doctors should provide better knowledge about vaccines to their patients. And the problem with this is that some people just won't listen. And then we should also increase funding for vaccination, but this might raise tax. And here's our work cited.
Okay, a couple questions. I'm gonna start with you, Jack. Describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
So as we talked, we realized that some slides had much too many words on it, so we decided to cut that back a little and just polish it up overall. And then we wanted to add some transitions between our slides to make it also flow nicer. And finally, we added more solutions, but we had to narrow that down a little on time, so that was part of it too, narrowing down time.
Gotcha. Okay, Lily, what is a way in which your team's resolution or conclusion makes you think differently about your own individual research?
My research was affected by it because it opened my eyes up to some of the other aspects that come into play with mandating vaccines. So for Connor's lens of ethical, it made me think how this probably wasn't an option for a lot of people and there has to be exceptions, but also it shows the absolute need for it within Jack's lens.
Okay, good. And then Connor, finally, in the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
I think we probably could have rehearsed a little bit more to try and narrow down some time, which we obviously could have done, we needed to do. And then maybe communication, even though I think we did well on that, we made a group chat and stuff, but if we had talked more, we might have been able to, even though it flowed pretty well, we probably could have made it a little bit better.
Thank you.